Hi, my name is Kyle, and I'm developing a video game called The Wondrous Storybook. It's largely inspired by games like Hades and Realm of the Mad God, and it's basically an action roguelike where you play as a character that gets pulled into a storybook, and he has to help these different storybook characters fight this kind of endless onslaught of evil that's coming upon them. I've always wanted to make a video game. I'm excited that I'm getting a chance to do this. I've spent the last year developing it and kind of told myself that after a year I would start talking about it and kind of showing it to people. Otherwise, it's been pretty under wraps. So this is kind of my first video kind of talking about it and showing everybody around me the game that I've been spending the last year on. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of take a look at my past year of development through my different GitHub commits and kind of see the progress that I've actually had and show, how it started, and all the different road bumps and things that I had to overcome to get to the point where it's at today. So let's start there, back in May of 2025 with my first commit. Okay, so this is the earliest version I can get from GitHub, and I gotta say, it's kind of therapeutic seeing it just to see how far I've come with the current day version compared to this version is so different, and it's just nice to see that the work I'm putting in is translating to something. This version, you can tell obviously there's placeholder art everywhere. It's all kind of just me figuring out the combat and how it's gonna work. Little key things like the enemies spawning and targeting the player. Even the player shooting the enemies, you can see like they have a little visual feedback on them too, where they'll like flash white when they get hit by a projectile, just to kind of let the player know that the projectile's made a connection with that enemy. So I'm kind of impressed with how much is in this earliest version. I thought it was going to be much worse, to be honest. So I'm pretty impressed. But yeah, it's so fun seeing that early version of the game. Okay, really quick disclaimer here before we continue on to June. I used a lot of AI art in the beginning of this development process for myself. I used it a lot just to help me keep the flow going with the game and see where I wanted to fit things in. It's all gone in today's version. There's no more AI art anywhere. I've got an actual artist to do the character portraits in the game. I do a lot of the pixel art myself, and I've also purchased asset packs online. So yeah, no more AI art going forward, but you will see it in this video. So let's get on to June 2025. Okay, so this is definitely an early version of the game, as you can see. This is my first iteration of the character's pixel art. I had never really done much pixel art before, so I was definitely trying to find my style and my groove here in the game. So that's my first version. It doesn't look too bad, but I definitely think it looks much better now than it did before. This is also where I first began the Boon system. My goal is really to make a lot of the foundational things in the game and then work on making it look pretty later. The Boon system was basically a core feature of the game. It's all about meeting different storybook characters, and it also gives me the opportunity in the future to do things like writing dialogue and maybe even hiring voice actors to perform some of the lines. The last thing I want to kind of touch on here is these little dots that are going in and out of the player. This is basically a technique I got from a different YouTuber that did a game jam similar to mine, and this is the technique he used. It's all about preventing the enemies from clumping together as they are targeting the player. Basically, they'll target these little dots, and then once they get close enough to the player, the target switches to the actual player character. So it helps them kind of move around the player and act a little bit more naturally, as opposed to just going into one big clump towards the player. And I think that about does it for June, so let's move on to July 30th, 2025. Okay, so now at this point, I've really tried hard to get visuals back up to snuff. I reworked the player character sprite because I just realized the one earlier was not going to work. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of my battle here for this section, was really about getting assets and trying to make them match a coherent art style. As you can see with this book, it like doesn't really fit the style of the player. Like this thick black border just doesn't really work for the style of game that I'm making here. So I later on you'll see me redo it, and I'll probably continue to redo it as time progresses further. But yeah, this one's all about just updating the visuals and making it better and better. All right, so let's move on to the rest of the year, where I struggled with what I am dubbing as the scaling crisis, trying to fit my game into multiple resolutions and just kind of falling flat on my face for most of it. So let's talk about it. Most modern monitor resolutions are 1920 by 1080p. If you're making a pixel art game though, you've got to render that game to a much smaller scale. For example, the Wondrous Storybook, its base resolution is set to 640 by 360p. Now in order to get back up to those more modern resolutions, all you have to do is scale your pixel art by whole number values. For example, if you multiply it by 2 times, you're going to get to 1280p. If you multiply it by 3 times, you'll get to 1920p. Now this works perfectly fine for a normal pixel art game. The problem comes when not everything is pixel art. The Wondrous Storybook, majority of it is pixel art, but I have a lot of high definition elements to it, such as the font and even the character art portraits. Let me show you what I mean with this high definition image of Lancelot. Basically, the way my game works right now is I would have to render this image in a small resolution of 640 by 360p and then scale it back up to those modern resolutions. What's going to happen if I do that is that the image is going to become very blurry, because you can't just scale up an image. It doesn't make sense. You can only do that with pixel art because of all these very specific square pixels. So long story short, basically what was happening to me was that my pixel art looked great. It looked crisp, I had nice squares, everything was pixel perfect, it looked fine. But the UI and the fonts and the character art all looked like it just didn't work because it was blurry. It was being scaled up from a low resolution and it was blurry. So that led me down this huge rabbit hole of changing everything to pixel art. I really wanted the game to be simple. It's my first real game that I'm making, and I didn't want to go overly in depth and make things really complicated as far as now I'm gonna have to make a new scaling engine and try to write custom code to make the scaling work properly. I really overthought it in my head, and I went down this rabbit hole, changed all the font out, changed all the UI out. I even went and asked some artists for their rates on commissioning some pixel art for these storybook characters. Ultimately, I didn't end up going that route. I ended up writing my own little scaling code for this thing, and I ended up going back to the high definition stuff because that's what I kind of set out to do in the beginning. It really was a big lesson for me in making sure that when I start these games to have a clear vision in mind, because it was obvious that my vision for the game was a little bit flaky. I kind of jumped ship the first second that there was some kind of roadblock in my way, and I started trying to reinvent everything just to get over this little speed bump where I really didn't need to do that. Writing the code for the scaler was a lot easier than what I was anticipating. I just felt like this really daunting task, but overall, it was actually much easier than I thought it was going to be. So now we're back to where we started. I spent, months stressing about it and trying to get over these hurdles. And it kind of delayed the game, but I also learned a lot along the process as well, which was really nice. So this is the end of the year build, and it's basically kind of coming to the end of the whole scaling crisis fiasco. You can see here I've implemented a new area called the library, which is supposed to be kind of the home base of the character. It's a peaceful area. You can interact with different NPCs here, and it kind of moves the story along and whatnot. Another big thing I did in this iteration was implement saving the game. So that was a big fear of mine when I was working on the game. Not a fear, but something I didn't know how to do. It was similar to the scaling thing. Was like, how do I actually make games save? Like, I had an idea of how it worked, like with the file system and whatnot. Like, you just basically are creating a file on the computer for the person, but I didn't know how to actually implement it or like what the right way was to do these things. So I've got a really simple version of the saving system here, and kind of, again, focusing on building that foundation of the game. The other thing also was obviously the NPC characters, implementing things like dialogue for them and trying to begin that whole process. I'm not sure if in this version I implemented Dialogue Manager yet, but that was kind of a big thing that I do, if not here, in the near future, implementing an actual system for dialogue. I am also implementing the Hydra, or the first boss fight, and you can see it's in a totally broken state here. It's completely broken. I've got 2 of the player characters. The Hydra's not even spawning. Obviously, the character shouldn't be firing this fast. There's so many things wrong with this build, but I think it's interesting to keep it in this video just to show kind of the ups and downs of the whole system and how it all works out in a real world setting. So that's it. That's the end of the year build. And now we'll move on to current day and what we see as now and how it all came together. All right, now we come to the current day version of the game where I feel like things are really starting to come together. I still got a lot of work to do, and the main goal is really to create a demo of the game. I want to get it to a playable state where I can hand it off to somebody that has never heard of the game before and they can actually play through it. So that means fixing all the bugs, making a small tutorial, making sure that everything works the way that I'm hoping it's going to work. Another big step in this version of the game was hiring an artist to do some of the storybook character portrait art. That was something I attempted to tackle myself earlier on in the game, and I just realized I was way in over my head. It was going to take me way too long to make something I was proud of to be put in the game. So I was like, you know what? I need to get somebody with experience, somebody that knows what they're doing. So trying to find somebody that kind of fit the style I was looking for was a big thing that I was doing in this time frame. I luckily found somebody. I will link them in the description if you want to reach out to them for your own project, but they were awesome to work with, and I'm stoked to work with them in the future as well. The next big thing that I really needed to tackle was the music and the sound effects in the game. I mean, the music was something that I've always wanted to do in the game. I did add placeholder music and sound effects in the current version of the game, but it's something I want to try to tackle myself because I feel like music is such the heart of so many video games that I feel like I would be doing it a disservice if I just like got assets online. And maybe that's a bad way to look at it, but I don't know. It's just something I want to tackle. I've always been interested in making music as well, so I think it's kind of right up my alley if I can give it the time it needs to kind of do so. I think it sounds fun. I think it would mean a lot to me in this game if I could do it myself. Regardless, the assets that I have gotten in the game so far are pretty good. I actually like them a lot. So it's maybe not something I will get done by the demo, but I do hope I can do it myself before the game actually releases. And I think we're going to end it here for the first devlog of the Wondrous Storybook. Thanks so much for watching. It's been weirdly therapeutic going through all the different iterations of the game and seeing how far I've come since then and reliving all those moments. If you're interested in future content for the Wondrous Storybook, subscribe to this channel. I don't have a Steam page up for it yet. That's something I'm hoping to have finished by the end of the year, but we'll see. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about the game, and we will catch you on the next devlog. Later days.